We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America.
It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check.
That doesn't mean that I didn't feel my father's absence. That's something that leaves a hole in a child's heart that a government can't fill. If we want our children to succeed in life, we need fathers to step up. We need fathers to understand that their work doesn't end with conception. What truly makes a man a father is the ability to raise a child.
I come from a single-parent household, and I didn't have any role models, any positive male role models, shall I say. You know, and kind of tying back into what Janisha said and why we had cool kids. As a kid, what we thought was cool is not what we're doing. And I care because if they knew better, they do better. And if we can show the youth that it's cool to give back, it's cool to excel beyond the limitations of where you live and what you see every day, then we can make a difference. And you know, we were all afforded the luxury of a formal education. You know, we're all doing well in various professions. And if we can't come back and place that at the feet of our people, we're not worth anything.
I think the Moynihan report is a missed opportunity because I knew for a long time that the report was viewed negatively. You know, you heard about the infamous Moynihan report and all that. But then when I actually read it and I saw that what was in it, I thought it was tremendous. And I thought it was prophetic, which it has proven to be.
The Moynihan report was a call to action with a principal focus on jobs, which got lost, I must say. But I remember who Moynihan was. He was working for the Department of Labor, Assistant Secretary, and a Labor Department has always and was then a principal advocate for jobs programs.
The Moynihan report was the first conspicuous announcement that there was a big problem in black families because black males were not present. And the repercussions for their children and for the communities were huge, and that the problem was not going to be solved until something's done about the black family.
So I was very much around when the Civil Rights Movement was at its absolute height. This is before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is with Selma, this is with the Freedom Riders, post-Freedom Riders. All of this was going on. I was at Harvard at that time, which was, you know, sort of a center of college intellectual life. And a good thing had happened during the Civil Rights Movement. And the good thing was that the consciousness of white America had really been, as the cliche goes, raised. I mean, there was a sea change in whites' attitudes toward blacks. That's the good news. The bad news was that you had an overreaction where if you just couldn't say anything bad about blacks at all. And because you felt very guilty about doing that. You're blaming the victim and all the rest of that. So Moynihan comes out with this, and they lit on him, the critics lit on him, I think, out of that. I can't stress how, I'm not talking intellectual, I'm talking a deep, visceral unwillingness to start saying bad things about blacks at that point in history.
Mr. Moynihan did not look at a number of issues that would explain the data that he saw, nor did he talk to people who might have given this some depth. So the data may well be correct, but the approach to the data and the arrogance with which the report was produced undermine the validity of the report.
I was the stupid kid that got busted in the house with a girl when I was 15. I know what time my mother came home. That's why it's stupid still in the house with a girl. Because I wasn't thinking, all I wanted to do was be with her. I was going to deal with the consequences. You know what the truth of the matter is? We don't want to deal with the consequences.
When it comes to beatings, believe me, my pops took it. Spit scriptures off the dome, you would think it was pop bullets. When it comes to serving Christ, I'm like waiters. You can only push me closer to God. I like haters. Or you could catch me breezing through Harlem with nice gators, trying to preach Jesus Christ to them homies with dice shakers. Holy Spirit catching you sliding like ice skaters. You ain't gotta have a candidate say that we lifesavers. Jews beat them down, that homie was just tripping. Jesus Christ threw a blood cause the world was set tripping. God the big homie, the one that convict phonies, trying to act like they ain't sinning when really they just lonely. These rappers trying to act like they ain't leasing a watch. You talk gangster, but then you got police in a drop. Beef with the rock? Please, you ain't pleasing me, cause when you die, you still gotta speak your piece to my pops.
Why is it okay for you to sit home every Thursday night and watch Scandal? What is it?
But you know what? That's not even my issue because I love Scandal. But it's about balance, you know? So it's like Thursday watch your Scandal, Friday go to the bar, Saturday be up and ready for service. It's that simple to me. Right. That's the part of it that's frustrating, is that we make time for everything else. And while we're at brunch, and while we're getting manicures and pedicures, and out getting red bottoms and Louboutins and whatever else, our kids are dying.
The reaction to the Moynihan report from African American intellectuals and liberal intellectuals more generally made the subject of family structure in America politically incorrect for at least 2.5 decades. So we observed when Moynihan made this art, today 70% of our children are born in single-parent households. And so over the decades, the proportion of black children born in single-parent households continued to rise. And essentially, liberal scholars could not address this feature of American life, and they left it basically to conservatives to do so. And out of that grew, really heinous discussions of the welfare queen and lots of misstated and misguided kinds of social theory, because in effect liberal scholars could not address an obvious problem in the African American community and think about how to fix it.
And if you know anything about relationships, anything about divides, the highest divorce rates, lowest marriage rates, highest out of wedlock birth rates, highest single rates, highest multiple parentage or multiple children rates, that's black. That's what it is today. It is what it is. Those are all reflections of self. You get divorced because you're selfish. You cheat on your wife because you're selfish. You stay single because you're selfish. You think it's about you. And what we have is this great legacy up until 1960 of blacks, with all their dysfunctions, with all their oppressions, with all of the systemic pressures that were on them, sacrificed themselves for the benefit of their families.
They say, oh, we can't get married until we're sure we've got all those other ingredients, the ingredients of find a partner, make a plan, know what we're going to do. So that bar is high. And so there's less marriage, and that's happening for whites too, as well as blacks and Latinos in their 20s. If you're undereducated, you're having a hard time economically, it's really hard to form a partnership, okay? But on the other hand, if the marriage bar is so high, why is the child bar so low? In other words, why do we have so many children out of wedlock? I don't care what color, okay? It's happening all over the place. If there is one thing I could do to improve low-income people's lives, to increase their opportunities, it would be to tell them to wait to have children after they finish their education and after they have a plan.
It's hard for me to really understand or explain the connection between poverty or lack of wealth and the inability to sustain the family. I think it has a lot to do with the way that society is set up, where a man can exert his manhood more efficiently in his own mind if he has the money to do certain things. But in the analysis that I've done where I looked at marriage patterns and different things like that, I found that black people who have higher incomes and higher levels of education marry at a rate that's higher than white people who are living in poverty and who are high school dropouts.
Resiliency. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Just trying to figure out the right word, resiliency. Just our ability to bounce back is just just sort of an amazing story when you look at the landscape of black progress in America, which is often not written in the history books, which is not taught to young folks, in school. And so while we have a rich history that you can go back and begin to look at the 1960s, there is a rich history being created right now here in America. When you look at the landscape, you look at the election of somebody like President Barack Obama, you look at somebody like a Tyler Perry, whether you like the movies or not, the fact that he was able to build a major film studio in Atlanta, Georgia, and you name it, from math to science to engineering to agriculture, you name the industry, black folks have kicked the door down and we're excelling. The challenge is we struggle because a lot of times we don't have a social marketing campaign, if you will, to begin to tell the good stories about the black millionaires, the black men and women that own businesses, and not just Oprah Winfrey or Kathy Hughes from Radio 1. There are more black millionaires, there are more black elected officials. Sure, we are in trouble in terms of there's some alarming social issues, but there's a lot of good things that I can tell my children about what's happening in black America.
The public policy may be race neutral. The results could be very much racialized. And so if you make an effort to have a war on drugs, but you only target certain communities, that's going to destabilize that community differentially. So I think what has happened in terms of the Moynihan report that has been a bit misleading is that there's the individual decisions that we're making about whether or not we're going to be married, whether or not we're going to stay married, what that means. There's the mythology about the availability of men versus women, and there's misleading data around that. But there's also the structural piece that has allowed a society to say, you know what, we don't care if we destabilize this family. We don't care if our policies have a differential and disparate outcome on certain groups and people as opposed to others. We're going to move forward even though the policy is not a fair one. And I think that's resulted in the kind of situation that Moynihan was looking at. He struggled with understanding the structural pieces of it, and that's so critical to it. It's not just individual decisions that get made.
Well, the political idea of equality is used to say, well, everybody has an equal chance. One of the things Moynihan was very clear on is there's a 300-year history of not having an equal chance, and that creating a civil rights movement is important. It can create an equality of opportunity, but it can't create what he called an equality of results. And he tried to get at why. But as long as government stopped caring about the results as they affected poor people and started caring about the results as they affected wealthy people, then things changed. And a lot of people have been left behind. And it's a double tragedy in that they're left behind, and we don't know that they're left behind. Nobody is made aware of it, and I think that's what happened in the 90s, and it's a shame. It's really a shame.